Mave Rowan woke with a headache, one bare leg outside the blankets, and a beautiful stranger asleep in her bed. Oh no, she thought. Absolutely not. On the 6th, his arm tightened around her waist, and something inside him made a pleased sound. Mave stared at the timber ceiling of her room above the Red Lantern Inn. A bunch of dried thyme hung from one beam. Her red dress hung from another. One boot sat in the wash basin. The other appeared to have entered politics and vanished. Morning light pushed through the shutters. It revealed a battlefield of discarded clothing, 2 empty cups, and the ceremonial wooden spoon she used to threaten customers who pinched serving girls. The spoon rested beside the stranger's hand. Mave had questions. Unfortunately, memory began answering them. She remembered a cold-eyed traveler entering during last night's rain. His dark coat was plain but expensive. He carried himself like doors usually opened before he reached them. The crowded taproom seemed to offend him personally. Mave had taken one look at his severe face and decided it required repair. She remembered bringing him ale. She remembered challenging him to a drinking game called Make the Ice Wolf Blink. She remembered losing 3 rounds, winning 4, and inventing 2 more when his mouth almost smiled. Then came flashes. His hand around her cup, her fingers in his collar, his gold-edged eyes watching her as if the entire inn had gone silent. She remembered kissing him first. She also remembered him pausing. Far worse, she remembered pulling him back. Mave closed her eyes. This was not a memory. It was an assassination attempt by her own brain. The man beside her shifted. His breath warmed the back of her neck. He smelled of pine smoke, rain, and the kind of expensive soap no ordinary traveler wasted on a mountain road. Something low and satisfied rumbled in his chest. Mave rolled away so quickly that the blankets twisted around her knees. She reached the edge of the mattress, forgot the missing boot, and landed on the floor with all the dignity of a dropped ham. The stranger woke. His eyes opened gray, then flashed gold. Inside Lucian Vale's mind, his wolf stretched with immense satisfaction. Mate. Lucian stared at the red-haired woman on the floor. No. Mate fell down. Help, mate. Lucian remembered enough of the night to understand the disaster. He remembered Mave laughing across the table, bright as fire in a room full of wet travelers. He remembered her accusing him of having only one facial expression. He remembered losing control of neither his mind nor his choices, but losing every sensible reason to leave her alone. His wolf had recognized her the moment she leaned across the bar. Lucian had ignored it. His wolf had then spent 4 hours celebrating every smile, touch, and challenge as proof that the moon itself supported poor judgment. Now Mave sat tangled in a blanket, red curls wild around her face, glaring at him as if deciding where to bury the body. Lucian had negotiated border treaties under less pressure. "Good morning," he offered. Mave pointed at the door. "That depends entirely on how fast you can find your trousers." He looked down. His trousers were hanging from the curtain rod. His wolf was delighted by this evidence of a successful evening. Lucian was not. Mave stood, gathering the blanket around herself like a general collecting a damaged flag. Her cheeks had turned nearly as red as her hair, but her voice remained brisk. "Here is what happens now," Mave said. "You find your clothes. I find my dignity. We never discuss either search." Lucian glanced toward the curtain rod. "My trousers may require a ladder." "Then climb quietly. My staff already knows enough." Lucian sat up carefully. A feather clung to his dark hair. Mave noticed it. She refused to find it charming. He removed the feather and asked whether she was hurt. The concern in his face was brief but real. It softened her embarrassment for half a heartbeat, which was exactly why she became even more efficient. She handed him his shirt, his coat, and one boot. Room charge, drinks, broken bed slat, and delayed opening. Lucian examined the damaged frame. You charge guests for shared destruction? I charge strangers who wake up looking pleased. Emotional damages cost extra. Lucian's mouth threatened to move. Mave raised the wooden spoon. His wolf wanted to be struck with it if that would make her laugh again. Lucian dressed in silence. The bed slat had indeed broken. He suspected this was not entirely his fault, but kings learned to recognize negotiations they could not win. Mave dressed behind the folding screen. While fastening her blouse, she heard him moving carefully through her small room. No fumbling, no embarrassed excuses, no attempt to turn the night into a promise. That should have relieved her. Instead, something foolish tightened beneath her ribs. She liked him. That was the problem. Mave had liked the cold stranger before the third cup. She had liked the way he listened while pretending not to. She had liked the rare curve of his mouth. She had liked discovering that beneath his frozen manners lived a dry humor sharp enough to cut rope. So she attacked the feeling before it attacked her, preferably with a bill. When she stepped from behind the screen, Lucian had found both boots. The missing one had somehow reached the windowsill. Mave decided not to investigate. Downstairs, the inn had already begun waking. Pots clanged in the kitchen. Horses stamped in the yard. Someone in the tap room coughed with the tragic depth of a man who had also challenged the local cider. Lucian paused at her door. His wolf dug invisible claws into the inside of his mind. We stay. We leave, Lucian answered. Wrong direction. Mave avoided his eyes. Settle your account with Tilda downstairs, then continue wherever grim men go to practice frowning. He wanted to tell her that Luca Gray was only the name written in the guest ledger. He was Lucian of House Vale, Alpha King of the Western Pax, traveling quietly to negotiate with the neighboring kingdom. The truth would put fear into her easy voice. It would turn last night into a royal scandal and every future word into careful obedience. He said nothing. Mave opened the door and gestured him through. Lucian left. His wolf mourned like a widow at sea. Chapter 1. The Game That Ruined Everything. The Red Lantern Inn stood at the center of Free Pass, a narrow mountain settlement claimed by no pack and tolerated by 3 kingdoms because everyone needed the road. Mave had inherited the inn from an aunt who believed bookkeeping was witchcraft and ale solved most legal disputes. Mave improved the accounts, kept the ale, and added a rule against knife-throwing before supper. Every evening, the taproom filled with merchants, couriers, hunters, and travelers too tired to pretend they were respectable. Mave drank with them when work allowed. She laughed loudly, argued generously, and remembered everyone's usual cup. Her hair matched her nature. Both were red, impossible to contain, and frequently near open flame. The previous night had begun like any other. Rain hammered the shutters while the hearth popped and smoked. Wet cloaks steamed near the door. A fiddler played badly enough that customers paid him to rest. Lucian entered with 5 companions and registered as Luca Gray. Mave assumed Luca Gray was a wealthy military officer. His coat was plain but perfectly cut. His boots carried mountain mud without looking defeated by it. 4 quiet men watched the exits while a lean blonde traveler named Cassian watched him. Cassian was Lucian's beta and oldest friend. He recognized danger when Mave approached with a pitcher. The danger had red hair and flour on one cheek. Mave asked what they wanted. Food, rooms, and hot water, Lucian requested in a voice that could have ordered cavalry. She leaned on the table. Anything for the funeral? He looked behind him. What funeral? Mave explained that he had entered her inn wearing the expression of a man attending his own burial. Nearby customers began listening. This is simply my face, Lucian replied. Tragic, Mave concluded. Cassian lowered his head over the menu. Lucian's wolf woke fully for the first time in weeks. Mate is funny. She is an innkeeper. Mate can be 2 things. Lucian ordered stew. Mave brought stew, bread, and a dark mountain ale. Each time she passed, she found another reason to bother him. She asked whether his eyebrows had signed a treaty never to rise. She offered to rent him a smile by the hour. When he refused dessert, she wondered aloud whether sweetness violated his military code. He answered every challenge with maddening calm. That made her more determined. After the supper rush, Mave joined the regulars at the long table. Someone suggested dice. Someone else suggested arm wrestling. Mave looked across the room at Lucian, who still sat straight-backed while Cassian quietly begged the universe for mercy. She announced a better contest. Make the Ice Wolf Blink had simple rules. Mave and Lucian would take turns choosing a challenge. A player drank for refusing, failing, laughing, blushing, or looking away. Lucian declined. Mave poured him a cup for refusing. The room cheered. His wolf approved of the crowd. Lucian joined the game because leaving would have looked like surrender. Alpha Kings had started wars for worse reasons. Mave's first challenge required him to tell a joke. Lucian considered the demand. 12 officials once met to reduce paperwork. They produced 40 pages of recommendations. The taproom remained silent. Mave stared at him. It happened, Lucian added. She laughed so suddenly that ale came through her nose. Lucian won the round. The next challenge required Mave to hold his gaze for 10 seconds without smiling. That is barely a challenge, she boasted. Lucian leaned forward. Then why are you already smiling? She lasted 6 seconds. His eyes turned gold at the edges, and the noisy room seemed to recede. She drank. The game continued. Mave stole his cup without touching his hands. Lucian made her blush without saying anything. That should be illegal, she complained. You created the rules. Mave lifted her cup in protest. I was younger then. Mave challenged him to let someone ruffle his hair. He permitted only her. Her fingers slid through the dark strands. His wolf nearly took control of the entire kingdom. Mate touched us. Yes, again. Lucian drank instead. By midnight, the table had become a cheering tribunal. Cassian stopped trying to end the game and began recording losses on the back of a trade receipt. Mave remained steady enough to walk, argue, and accuse Lucian of cheating through supernatural cheekbones. Lucian remained steady enough to know he should stop. Neither stopped. The final challenge came from Mave. She bet she could make him lose his composure within 1 minute. Lucian accepted. Mave moved from the opposite bench to the seat beside him. She straightened his collar, brushed rain-dried dust from his shoulder, and leaned close enough for him to smell apples, wood smoke, and ale. The room counted down. Lucian's wolf surged toward her with a force that lit gold through his eyes. Mave's smile faltered. For the first time that evening, she looked uncertain. Lucian lifted one hand and tucked a loose red curl behind her ear. The gesture was slow. His knuckles brushed her cheek. Mave forgot the count, so did everyone else. Still think I am made of ice? Lucian asked. Mave answered by gripping his collar. She kissed him before the room reached 10. The taproom exploded with cheers. Cassian put both hands over his face. Mave broke the kiss and looked at his stunned expression. I win! Lucian rose slowly. The count had not finished. Appeal denied. Lucian stood, took her hand, and followed her upstairs. His wolf sang. The next morning, Mave came down alone. Tilda, her gray-haired cook, slid a cup of bitter herb tea across the bar. She asked nothing. Her silence contained enough judgment for a full sermon. Mave drank the tea. Across the room, Cassian settled Lucian's bill with several gold coins and the expression of a man paying ransom. Lucian stood by the door in his dark coat. He looked once toward Mave. She busied herself polishing a cup already clean. He left with his companions. The door shut behind him. Mave kept polishing until Tilda removed the cup before she erased the glass. Outside, Lucian mounted his horse. His wolf looked back through his eyes at the red lantern swinging above the inn. Bad king. Lucian turned toward the eastern mountain road. The wolf continued insulting him for 6 miles. Chapter 2. The mountain corrects the king. The road collapsed shortly before noon. Rain had loosened the cliff above Raven's Turn. Half the mountain came down in a roar of stone, mud, and uprooted pine. Lucian's party felt the ground shake before they saw the dust rising through the valley. No one was hurt. The lead riders stopped in time. The road ahead vanished beneath a wall of debris. Cassian dismounted and studied the ruin. The blockage would not yield to 6 men, 4 horses, and royal displeasure. Lucian stood in the rain. His wolf became radiant. Mountain loves us. The mountain does not have opinions. Mountain returned us to mate. Cassian turned from the landslide. He had served Lucian for 12 years and knew exactly what battle was occurring behind the king's expression. We return to the inn, Lucian decided. Cassian displayed heroic discipline. For safety. For shelter, Lucian corrected. Naturally, nothing else is located there. They reached the Red Lantern near sunset. The taproom was crowded with travelers who had heard about the collapse. Mave stood on a table, assigning rooms and threatening anyone who lied about the size of their party. Her red hair had escaped its braid. One sleeve was rolled higher than the other. She held a piece of chalk like a weapon. Lucian's wolf nearly wagged a tail they did not currently possess. Mave saw him in the doorway. Her voice stopped. The entire room followed her gaze. Lucian stood dripping onto the floor, dark hair plastered to his forehead. Cassian and the guards waited behind him. Mave recovered first. Did the mountain reject you? The road no longer exists. Even the road couldn't tolerate your mood, she observed. Laughter rolled through the taproom. Lucian accepted the insult with royal patience. His wolf accepted it as courtship. Mave climbed down. Every room was occupied. Merchants shared with couriers, and 2 hunters had the linen closet. A priest slept beside the hearth after losing an argument with a family of 6. Lucian expected her to suggest her room. You can have the storage room, Mave decided. His gaze narrowed. The one beside the wine cellar? Do not sound grateful. It also contains onions. His wolf considered this betrayal. Lucian considered it fair. The room held a narrow cot, 3 sacks of onions, and a shelf of empty bottles that chimed whenever the wind struck the wall. Cassian received the hayloft with the guards. He declared the arrangement excellent because it placed a solid floor between him and any future drinking games. The landslide transformed the inn by morning. More travelers arrived from both directions. Pack horses filled the stable. Wet boots crowded the entrance. Everyone wanted food, warmth, information, and the last available blanket. Mave moved through the chaos like fire through dry grass. She assigned tasks without asking rank. Merchants carried water. Hunters chopped vegetables. A traveling musician repaired a shutter because no one wanted him playing. Lucian attempted to remain a guest. Mave handed him an axe. The woodpile needed splitting. Lucian had commanded armies, broken sieges, and negotiated with kings who changed treaty clauses between breakfast and lunch. He had not split firewood since boyhood. His first strike buried the axe too deeply. The second split the block and the chopping stump beneath it. Mave stared at the 2 perfect halves. The goal is firewood, not regime change. Lucian adjusted his technique. Within an hour, every piece stood identical in length and thickness. The pile resembled a military formation. Mave found him aligning the final row. She laughed so hard she had to lean against the shed. His wolf glowed with pride. Made mate laugh. Excellent wood. Lucian tried not to smile. Mave noticed. She declared another victory in Make the Ice Wolf Blink. The inn's old yellow dog, Pickle, arrived to inspect the work. Pickle disliked strangers, rain, and any chair occupied by someone else. He sniffed Lucian's boots, sneezed, and sat on both of them. Lucian could no longer move. Mave suggested that Pickle had accepted his surrender. The Alpha King spent the next 10 minutes trapped by a dog while his guards watched from the stable door. No one offered help. By evening, Mave had put Lucian to work carrying plates. He moved through the tap room with the grave concentration of a man transporting explosives. Customers stopped conversations whenever he approached. His natural authority made each bowl of stew feel like a royal decree. One old trader accepted his supper. "Whatever I did, I regret it." Mave took the tray away. "Smile," she instructed. "Set down the bowl. Try not to imply that execution comes with dessert." Lucian frowned at the tray. "You require too many skills from one server." Lucian attempted a smile at the next table. The children there began crying. Mave sent him to the kitchen. Tilda put him on potato duty. Cassian entered later and found his king peeling vegetables beside 3 washerwomen. Lucian's sleeves were rolled up. A curl of potato skin hung from one wrist. Cassian looked toward the ceiling as if thanking a generous god. Lucian warned him that a single word would result in permanent reassignment to drainage inspections. Tilda handed Cassian another knife. Soon the Alpha King and his beta were peeling potatoes while Mave sang loudly in the tap room. Lucian's wolf had never been happier. Chapter 3. The Cold Traveler Becomes Useful. On the 3rd morning, the rain stopped. The consequences did not. Workers reached Raven's Turn and discovered that the landslide had taken part of the road into the gorge. Clearing stones would not be enough. They needed timber, ropes, and several days to build a safe crossing. The trapped travelers received this news badly. A spice merchant accused the mountain of violating commercial law. 2 brothers began arguing over the final private room. A woman with 3 children announced that anyone who woke the baby would be buried beneath the next landslide. Mave climbed onto the bar. She rang a brass bell until everyone stopped shouting. Food would be served twice daily. Water remained free. Ale did not. Anyone starting a fight would lose both their bed and their trousers, though Mave did not explain how she intended to enforce the second penalty. The crowd believed her. Lucian watched from the kitchen door. He had seen generals command with less confidence. His wolf admired the speech and suggested placing Mave in charge of the Western armies. Lucian suspected the armies would enjoy themselves too much. The real trouble arrived before noon. 6 road workers carried in a 7th man on a door ripped from its hinges. A falling branch had opened his thigh. Blood soaked the blanket beneath him. The taproom fell silent. Mave cleared the long table with one sweep of her arm. Cups and cards crashed onto the floor. She sent Tilda for clean cloth, ordered water heated, and pressed both hands above the wound. Her face changed. The laughter remained somewhere inside her, but it stepped aside for competence. Lucian moved without being asked. He held the injured man's shoulders while Mave cleaned the wound. Cassian organized the crowd, sending children upstairs and strong travelers to fetch supplies. One guard rode toward the nearest healer, though the broken road forced a long detour. The injured man thrashed. Lucian bent close. "Look at me. Breathe when I breathe. You are not leaving this table." His voice carried the quiet force of command. The man obeyed. Mave glanced at Lucian once. She saw no cold traveler then. She saw someone accustomed to keeping frightened people alive. The thought stayed with her. They worked for an hour. The bleeding slowed. Mave stitched the wound with hands steadier than her pulse. Lucian never looked away, even when the smell of blood sharpened his wolf. When the healer finally arrived, he praised their work and predicted recovery. Noise returned gradually. The kitchen resumed chopping. Someone picked up the fallen cards. Pickle licked blood from the floor until Tilda removed him with a broom. Mave washed her hands at the pump behind the inn. The afternoon sun felt too bright. Her fingers began shaking only after everything was over. Lucian came outside carrying a clean towel. He did not tell her she had been brave. Praise would have broken the last of her control. He simply held out the cloth. Mave rubbed the towel over her shaking fingers. Do grim travelers often know how to command wounded men? I have seen battles. She studied his face. That answer closed more doors than it opened. She waited for more. He gave none. Mave had spent years serving drinks to people who wanted to become strangers for a night. She knew the sound of a closed door inside a sentence. Normally, she kicked such doors. This time, she let it remain shut. That restraint surprised Lucian more than questions would have. His wolf leaned toward her warmth. Tell mate truth. Not yet. Coward. Lucian accepted the judgment. That evening, Mave found a stool repaired in the kitchen, the loose stable latch fixed, and every water barrel filled. Lucian claimed no responsibility. His hands smelled of iron and fresh-cut wood. Mave poured him 1 cup of ale. Only one. She placed it beside him and announced that the establishment now limited his access to poor decisions. Lucian observed that she still served herself freely. Mave informed him that management enjoyed privileges. They sat near the hearth after the customers settled. The room smelled of yeast, wet wool, and stew. Logs shifted in the fire with soft red collapses. Mave asked about the places he had traveled. Southport is built over canals, Lucian told her. At night, every bridge carries lanterns. And you frowned at all of them? He ignored that. Farther east, white stones shine like snow beneath the moon. I would like to see that, Mave admitted. Mave had never traveled farther than the neighboring valley. She listened with her chin on one hand. Lucian discovered he wanted to show her every place. His wolf proposed leaving immediately. Lucian reminded it that the road had collapsed. Mountain is wise. At the next table, a group began another drinking game. Mave's eyes brightened. Lucian covered her cup with one hand. She stared at it. He reminded her that management had privileges but also a damaged bed. Mave accused him of fearing another defeat. Lucian admitted he feared the curtain rod. She laughed, and the warm room seemed to gather around the sound. They did not drink enough to become reckless. That made the awareness between them worse. When Mave climbed the stairs, she felt his gaze follow her. She reached her door and almost turned. Almost. Lucian slept beside the onions. His wolf complained until dawn. Chapter 4. The Inn Develops Opinions. By the 5th day, everyone at the Red Lantern believed Mave and Lucian were lovers. Mave denied it. Lucian denied it. Their denials convinced no one, especially because Pickle had begun carrying Lucian's socks to Mave's bedroom. The dog refused to explain. Rumors developed according to occupation. Merchants believed Lucian was a ruined nobleman. Hunters thought he was a mercenary hiding from a blood feud. The traveling musician insisted he was a prince cursed never to smile. Tilda knew only that he peeled potatoes too evenly to be trusted. Lucian's guards maintained their disguise as fellow travelers. They helped in the stable and kept weapons beneath their coats. Mave assumed they worked for the same wealthy employer. Cassian became popular because he played cards badly and lost with grace. Lucian became popular because Mave kept assigning him impossible tasks in public. She asked him to lead morning exercises for children trapped indoors by mud. He organized them into 2 disciplined lines. Within minutes, they had occupied the staircase and captured his coat. She put him in charge of counting blankets. He returned with an inventory categorized by size, condition, and defensive usefulness. She told him to clean the wine cellar. He arranged the bottles by region, year, sweetness, and tactical importance. Mave stood at the foot of the cellar stairs, hands on her hips. What have you done? Nothing had ever been easier to find. She hated that. Lucian waited for criticism. I repaired it. It was a wine cellar, not a defeated province. Mave moved one bottle half an inch to the left. His eye twitched. She moved another. Still calm? Perfectly. The wolf inside him demanded immediate intervention. Lucian crossed his arms and refused to react. Mave rearranged a third bottle. One eyebrow rose. She declared victory and fled upstairs before he could catch her. Lucian followed. The chase crossed the kitchen, circled the hearth, and ended when Mave slipped on flour. Lucian caught her around the waist. The room changed. Her laughter stopped. His breath warmed her temple. Flour drifted through a shaft of sunlight and settled on his black sleeve. Mave remembered his hands from the first night. Lucian remembered everything. His wolf pushed forward, gold flashing in his eyes. Mate. Maeve's pulse jumped, neither moved. Then Tilda struck the table with a rolling pin. She informed them that romantic paralysis did not bake bread. Mave stepped away so quickly she left a handprint of flour on Lucian's chest. The mark remained all afternoon. No one told him. That night, a roof leak opened above Lucian's storage room. Water dripped onto the cot, the onions, and finally Lucian's forehead. Mave offered him the stable. His wolf considered this grounds for war. Cassian pointed out that the hayloft was full of guards and a family of mice with strong territorial instincts. The taproom benches were occupied. The linen closet held hunters. Tilda had allowed the injured road worker to recover in her room. Mave looked toward the stairs. Lucian looked toward the stairs. Pickle took one of Lucian's socks upstairs. Mave agreed to let him sleep on the floor of her room. She established rules before opening the door. No ale, no games, no touching, and no remarks about the curtain rod. Lucian accepted. His wolf accepted nothing. Mave placed 3 folded blankets beside the bed. Lucian lay down fully dressed. The floorboards were hard, the room smelled of lavender soap, and the mattress creaked whenever Mave moved. They remained awake in the dark. Rain began again, softly at first. It tapped the shutters and whispered along the eaves. Mave stared into the darkness. "Do you regret the first night?" Lucian stared at the ceiling. He regretted hiding. He regretted leaving. He regretted that she knew only part of him. He did not regret her. "No," he answered. "I regret several cups, 1 curtain rod, and possibly the wooden spoon. Not you." Mave went quiet. The answer frightened her more than a joke would have. She pulled the blanket higher. "I do not regret you either. I only resent how much my brain preserved." Lucian's wolf made a pleased rumble. Mave sat upright. She demanded, "What was that sound?" "The pipes. The inn had no pipes." "We have no pipes." Lucian revised the explanation. "Old timber." Mave leaned over the side of the bed. Her red hair fell around her face while she studied him in the moonlight. The rumble came again. This time she placed a hand against his chest. Lucian stopped breathing. Mave felt the vibration beneath her palm. She had lived around wolf shifters her entire life. She knew their animals sometimes pressed close to the surface. She had simply never met one pleased enough to purr. "Wolves do not purr," Lucian insisted. Mave pressed her palm more firmly to his chest. "Then this is very expensive rumbling." The word royal struck too close. He turned his face away. Mave mistook the movement for embarrassment and smiled. She returned to bed. Neither slept well. In the morning, Mave woke sideways across the mattress with one hand hanging over the edge. Lucian's wolf had guided his sleeping body closer. He lay beside the bed with his cheek resting beneath her palm. Mave stared down at him. The cold traveler looked peaceful. She brushed dark hair from his forehead before she could stop herself. Lucian opened his eyes. They froze. Mave withdrew her hand and blamed a spider. Lucian looked around for it with such solemn attention that she had to bite the blanket to keep from laughing. Chapter 5. The Problem with Clear Skies. As the road workers rebuilt the mountain crossing, the weather improved. Blue sky appeared above the peaks. Meltwater glittered in the ditches. Every clear morning brought the red lantern closer to losing its trapped guests. Mave should have been relieved. Instead, she became louder. She organized card games, argued with suppliers, and sang while carrying barrels. Whenever Lucian entered a room, she found someone else to tease. Lucian recognized retreat when he saw it. His wolf wanted to block every door. Lucian refused. He had still not told her who he was. Each day made the omission heavier. Several times he approached her with the truth prepared. Each time something interrupted. Once a goat entered the tap room. No one knew whose goat it was. It ate half a map, drank from Alpha King Lucian's cup, and chased Cassian onto a table. Mave caught it using an apron and a cabbage. Afterward, Lucian could not find a graceful path from goat removal to royal confession. Another attempt ended when Pickle stole his glove and buried it beneath the herb garden. The third failed because Mave looked up from polishing the bar and smiled. Lucian forgot every sentence. His wolf called this justice. Meanwhile, Mave learned things about him through observation. He woke before dawn. He checked doors at night. He always sat facing entrances. When travelers argued, he listened before judging. When food ran low, he quietly ate less. He carried scars beneath his shirt and responsibility in the set of his shoulders. He also cheated at cards. Mave caught him counting discarded kings during a game near the hearth. Lucian claimed strategic awareness was not cheating. You counted the discarded kings, Mave accused. I noticed them. She opened his hand and revealed the evidence. You noticed them into your pocket. She confiscated his winnings and bought everyone's cider. He watched her distribute the coins with no concern for profit. She had spent 10 days feeding strangers on reduced rates. She gave the injured worker his room without charge and let children raid the kitchen after supper. Mave called herself an ordinary innkeeper. Lucian saw a woman holding an entire temporary village together through chalk, profanity, and stew. His wolf had recognized her first. The man was catching up. One afternoon, supplies from the Western Valley failed to arrive. A merchant named Varys claimed the remaining flour and salted meat belonged to him. He offered to sell them back at 4 times the usual price. Mave stood in the yard while hungry travelers gathered. Varys had contracts, armed escorts, and the oily confidence of a man who believed paper outweighed decency. Mave had a wooden spoon. Lucian stepped beside her. He could have ended the dispute by revealing his name. One royal order would have opened every wagon. He did not. Instead, he examined the contracts. Free pass law allowed emergency seizure only through a vote of resident operators. Mave held 1 vote. The stable master held another. The blacksmith held the third. Lucian explained this quietly. Mave smiled. Within 20 minutes, the 3 residents voted. Varys received fair payment at normal rates. His guards helped unload under the watch of several hunters who enjoyed civic participation. Varys looked him over. Who do you think you are? Lucian lifted the inventory. Currently, the man who can prove you counted the same flour twice. Mave folded her arms beside him. And I am the woman deciding whether you leave with payment or cabbage. Mave nearly kissed him in the yard. She did not. The restraint made her furious. That night, she brought 2 cups to the back steps. One held ale. The other held water. Lucian chose water. Mave accused him of cowardice. He reminded her that the last drinking contest ended with structural damage. They sat beneath the swinging red lantern. The valley smelled of pine and wet stone. Hammers rang faintly from the road camp. Mave watched the road camp below. Why did you help without taking over? It is your inn and your law. Most powerful men confuse helping with becoming louder. Lucian turned toward her. Most powerful men are badly trained. No man had ever made respect sound so simple. She turned toward him. This time no ale blurred the moment. No crowd counted seconds. No wolf pushed hard enough to excuse anything. Mave kissed him. Lucian responded carefully, one hand settling at her waist. He gave her every chance to stop. She moved closer. His wolf filled him with warmth, but did not lead. The kiss deepened, then ended before either lost control. Mave rested her forehead against his. She rested her forehead against his. Being sober has made this much worse. Considerably, Lucian agreed. From the kitchen window, Tilda closed the shutters with unnecessary force. Pickle barked once in approval. Mave laughed against Lucian's mouth. Chapter 6. The Guest with Too Many Names. The road reopened 2 days later. Workers crossed the new timber section at dawn. By breakfast, travelers were packing. The inn, filled with buckles, shouted farewells, and arguments about missing socks. Mave moved through it all with her usual energy. Inside, she felt as if someone had loosened the boards beneath her feet. Lucian would leave. Of course he would. Travelers left. That was the nature of inns and the reason Mave preferred them to promises. She had spent years watching people arrive with snow on their shoulders and stories in their mouths. They ate, slept, laughed, and disappeared down the road. Mave remained behind with the cups. Lucian found her in the stable, tightening a strap that needed no attention. He had decided to tell her everything before departure. His wolf was furious that honesty had required nearly 2 weeks. Lucian began with her name. Mave looked up. Hooves thundered into the yard. 12 riders passed beneath the free pass arch, wearing the silver wolf of the Western Crown. Their cloaks were mud-splashed, their horses lathered from hard travel. The inn emptied into the courtyard. Lucian closed his eyes briefly. The lead rider dismounted. He was young, exhausted, and so relieved to find his king alive that training abandoned him. He dropped to one knee. "Your Majesty." Silence struck the yard. A chicken clucked near the stable. Pickle stole a glove from one of the royal riders. Mave looked at the kneeling soldier. Then she looked at Cassian, who suddenly found the clouds fascinating. Finally, she looked at Lucian. The cold traveler stood very still. Everything she had noticed rearranged itself at once. The authority, the guards, the expensive soap, the way wounded men obeyed his voice, the fact that he peeled potatoes like issuing law. Lucian Vale was not a military officer. He was Alpha King Lucian Vale. Mave began laughing. The sound worried him more than anger. She laughed until she had to grip the stable door. Every traveler watched. The young rider remained kneeling, unsure whether rising would constitute treason. Mave wiped tears of laughter from one eye. "I charged the Alpha King for a broken bed." "You did," Lucian confirmed. She pointed toward the kitchen. "I made the Alpha King peel potatoes." Cassian cleared his throat. 17 potatoes. Mave's laughter stopped. The herd arrived beneath it. Lucian asked for privacy. Mave told everyone to return inside before she began charging admission. The crowd obeyed, though several people pressed close to the windows. Pickle remained with the stolen glove. In the stable, Lucian faced her without a crown to hide behind. "I traveled quietly for diplomatic reasons," he explained. "I intended to leave after one night. When the mountain sent me back, I should have told you." Mave brushed straw from her palms. "I understand the first night. I even understand the next morning." Her gaze hardened. "I do not understand every day after." "The truth became harder because I liked how you treated me," Lucian admitted. "You laughed at me. You ordered me to peel potatoes. You saw a man instead of a crown." That honesty did not erase the deception. Mave's voice remained calm. "I was honest with Luca Gray." He waited. "Luca Gray did not exist." The words landed harder than any accusation. "He existed," Lucian insisted. "The king is not a different man." Mave disagreed. The man sleeping beside onions could leave, choose work, kiss an innkeeper, and promise nothing. A king carried a kingdom into every room, even when he hid the crown outside. She had not been allowed to decide whether she wanted that room. Lucian had no defense. His wolf pressed forward in distress. Tell mate. Not now. Tell her she is mate. That would be the worst possible use of the truth. Mave saw gold flash in his eyes. What else did Luca Gray forget to mention? Lucian could have lied again. He did not. My wolf recognized you the first night, Lucian answered. He believes you are my fated mate. Mave stepped backward. No mark existed between them. No bond compelled her. Lucian had refused to claim what she had not knowingly chosen. Still, the revelation changed the shape of every memory. His return after the landslide, his constant presence, the rumble in her room, the way his eyes followed her. Which part belonged to you? Mave asked. The return? The work? The kiss? Lucian answered without hesitation. The wolf recognized you first. Every day afterward belonged to me. She wanted to believe him. That was why she could not answer quickly. The royal riders brought urgent news from the Eastern Court. The delayed negotiations had been moved to a border fortress. Lucian needed to depart before noon. Mave almost laughed at the timing. Kings apparently scheduled heartbreak between meetings. Lucian did not ask her to come. He did not claim her, command her, or use fate as an argument. I will not ask you to decide today, he said. I have taken enough choices from you. He paid the final room bill under his full name. Mave stared at the signature. Alpha King Lucian Vale had beautiful handwriting. She hated that too. He moved his bedding from her room, returned the storage key, and repaired the last broken shutter. Then he stood beneath the red lantern with his horse waiting. Mave stayed behind the bar. Lucian looked at her once. His wolf grieved. Mave lifted her chin. Safe journey, your majesty. He left. This time the road did not send him back. Chapter 7. The innkeeper wins an argument with fate. The red lantern felt too large after Lucian departed. Most trapped travelers left the same day. The taproom returned to its usual size. Empty benches appeared where families had slept. The stable stopped sounding like a military camp. Mave celebrated the peace by dropping 3 cups. Tilda watched the third shatter. She suggested that grief was becoming expensive. Mave denied grieving. She was angry, relieved, embarrassed, and possibly ill from bad cheese. Tilda had served the cheese herself. Mave changed the subject. Pickle searched the storage room each morning. Finding no Alpha King, he carried Lucian's remaining sock upstairs and placed it on Mave's pillow. She threw it into the hall. Pickle returned it. This continued for 4 days. On the 5th, Mave put the sock in a drawer. She told herself this was to defeat the dog. News traveled the mountain road faster than respectable people. Merchants reported that Lucian reached the border fortress and completed negotiations. He secured safer passage for Western traders and support for rebuilding Raven's Turn. Other travelers brought less useful information. They claimed the Alpha King looked murderous during banquets. They said he dismissed 3 musicians for playing a song about red-haired women. One courier insisted the king had ordered every royal guest house to improve its potato knives. Mave believed only the last report. Her anger changed as days passed. It did not disappear. Lucian had hidden something enormous because he enjoyed being treated as ordinary. That had cost her the chance to decide with full knowledge. Yet she also remembered what he had not done. He had never used rank inside the inn. He had followed free pass law during the food dispute. He had slept beside onions rather than demand her room. He had left when duty called and had not asked her to abandon her life. The fated mate truth troubled her differently. Mave disliked the idea that a wolf she had never met had filed a claim before she knew the man's surname. She disliked even more that part of her wanted the wolf to be right. At night, she replayed their sober kiss on the back steps. No honey ale had chosen that. No mountain had caused it. No crown had required it. She had. 3 weeks after Lucian left, a royal wagon arrived. Mave marched outside prepared to reject jewels, proclamations, or a marriage proposal large enough to require wheels. The wagon carried timber, good mountain cedar, cut to replace the temporary crossing with a permanent bridge section. A short letter accompanied it. Lucian explained that the crown owed Freepass safe access after using its road. No mention of love appeared. No request accompanied the gift. At the bottom, he had added one line. "The mountain sent me back the first time. I will not ask it to decide for me again." Mave read the line twice. Then she folded the letter and placed it in the drawer with the sock. Tilda saw this. Mave threatened to reduce her wages. Tilda reminded her that she owned half the kitchen equipment. The matter ended. Winter approached. Frost silvered the stable roof. Travelers returned to the evening tables, and Mave resumed drinking with them. She no longer played Make the Ice Wolf Blink. No one else had the correct face for it. One night, a broad merchant challenged her to a staring contest. Mave defeated him in 4 seconds. Victory felt dull. She poured another drink and looked toward the door whenever the wind moved it. Her heart was becoming embarrassing. Chapter 8. Nothing sent him this time. Lucian returned on a clear afternoon. No landslide blocked the road. No royal riders surrounded him. No diplomatic emergency forced him toward Freepass. He came alone on a dark horse with one travel bag behind the saddle. Mave was carrying firewood across the yard. She saw him beneath the red lantern and dropped half the bundle on her foot. Lucian dismounted. His wolf erupted with joy. Mate. Home. Mate is angry. Excellent. Mave set down the remaining wood before she injured herself again. Lucian entered the inn as a guest. He waited at the bar while Tilda, Cassian's secret ally in cruelty, took an unreasonable amount of time wiping her hands. Mave approached. Neither smiled. Lucian rested both hands on the bar. "I need a room. The storage room still leaks. Then I need a bucket as well." She checked the ledger, though every key hung behind her. Finally, she closed the ledger. "What sent you back?" Lucian placed the correct payment on the bar. "Nothing." Mave looked at him. He continued quietly. "The mountain sent me back the first time. Nothing sent me this time." His words settled into the warm tap room. A spoon struck a bowl in the kitchen. Logs cracked in the hearth. Outside, Pickle barked at a cart and then raced through the door. The dog recognized Lucian, seized his glove, and fled upstairs. Mave closed her eyes. Lucian watched the glove disappear. He had brought several spares. That almost made her smile. Lucian explained that the negotiations were complete. "I can remain 3 days. After that, I would like to return whenever duty allows." He did not ask Mave to become queen. He did not ask her to close the inn. He met her eyes. "Will you let me begin again using my real name?" Mave studied the man she had known as Lucian and the king she was only beginning to understand. Mave wrote in the ledger, "Double rate for deception." Lucian paid. "And emotional damages." He added another coin. Naturally. Mave gave him the best room. That evening, the regulars gathered around the long table. News of the king's return had traveled from the bar to the stable in under a minute. Everyone pretended not to stare. Lucian sat beside Mave. Someone proposed Make the Ice Wolf Blink. Mave refused. The room groaned. She explained that Lucian had already lost and the damages were still being calculated. Lucian objected. Mave had kissed him before the final count, which could be interpreted as surrender. The room demanded a ruling. Tilda declared both parties guilty. Ale appeared. Mave removed Lucian's cup before he touched it. His eyebrows rose. She did not intend to wake beside a second hidden king. Lucian pointed out that no other kings were present. An old traveler near the hearth raised one hand and admitted he had occasionally been called the King of Turnips. Mave moved Lucian's cup farther away. His wolf enjoyed the evening immensely. After the crowd settled, Mave led Lucian to the back steps. Cold stars hung above the mountain. The repaired road showed pale between the pines. Mave faced him beneath the stars. Being fated mates does not mean I belong to you. I know. I am keeping this inn. Lucian glanced toward the red lantern. I would be disappointed if you did not. Mave warned him that she would not live permanently in a palace full of people who folded napkins by rank. Lucian looked uncomfortable. Some of them do. Mave looked horrified. He promised reform. Start with the napkins, Mave ordered. That may be my most dangerous policy. Her laughter escaped at last. Lucian's wolf settled inside him, warm and triumphant. Mave touched his coat. She did not forgive every omission in one conversation. She did not promise forever because a wolf had identified her scent. She only chose the next honest step. She kissed him beneath the red lantern. Lucian held her carefully, as if strength meant knowing what not to take. When they parted, Mave reminded him that his room was upstairs and hers was at the other end of the hall. His wolf collapsed in despair. Lucian accepted the key. Mave let him reach the stairs before calling his name. He turned. She added that the room assignment might be reviewed after closing. Gold flashed in his eyes. He walked into a table. Mave 1, make the ice wolf blink again. Epilogue. 1 year later, the red lantern remained exactly where it had always been. Mave still owned it. Tilda still ruled the kitchen. Pickle had accumulated 6 royal gloves and slept on them like treasure. Lucian divided his time between the capital and Free Pass. He visited when duty allowed, never without paying for a room. Mave visited the palace twice and reorganized its guest bar before anyone could stop her. The inn had become an informal meeting place for merchants and royal officials. This was partly useful and partly because Lucian preferred negotiations near Mave's stew. On the anniversary of their first drinking game, the taproom filled beyond capacity. Cassian arrived with the royal party and immediately inspected the curtain rods. Mave served Lucian 1 cup of ale. I can handle more than this, he complained. She kept hold of the pitcher. The last time you handled more, we broke a bed, delayed diplomacy, and created a year of travel expenses. Lucian examined the cup. That seems an excellent return on investment. Mave took the cup away. The regulars demanded the old game. 1 round, Mave announced. No drinking penalties. The loser performs the winner's chores tomorrow. Cassian raised his cup. Your Majesty, remember that retreat remains honorable. Lucian ignored him. I accept. Lucian accepted with the confidence of a king who had learned nothing. Mave stepped between Lucian's knees. Remain expressionless while I sit on your lap. His gaze sharpened. That is not a fair challenge. You had a year to study the rules. His wolf surrendered immediately. Lucian lasted 3 seconds. Blink, Mave declared. I did not blink. She tapped the corner of his mouth. Your entire face surrendered. The inn erupted. Mave raised both hands in victory, red hair bright in the firelight. Lucian looked up at her with no coldness left to hide behind. She leaned down and kissed him while customers cheered. Outside, the mountain remained quiet. It had already done its part. Above the door, the red lantern swung in the winter wind, welcoming every traveler who still had a poor decision ahead.